Hi, Darren. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hi. Sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late. Hello from Arkansas. Hello, hello. Nice to see you. Hi, guys. Hello. Nice to see everybody. Hello from Pennsylvania. Nice to see you. Hi, everybody. Hi from Michigan, Oregon, Tampa Bay, my old hometown. Southern Illinois, Utah, Michigan, Alabama, South Carolina. I know, Mando, it's raining here too in Southern California. Hello, Kentucky, Indiana, Massachusetts, Chicago, my home state of California, Shreveport, New York. My goodness. I am on Substack, but I'm going live here on YouTube tonight. Hello from Texas and Utah, Rancho Cucamonga. Hello, Maggie. Nice to see you. Hello from California, Colorado, Cooperstown, New York, Hall of Fame country. Arkansas, Virginia, Georgia, Aurora, El Paso. I got another Texas, South Carolina. Good to see you guys. Look at all of you. Hello, hello. Hi, Caroline. No, I am not doing the monthly subscription on TikTok anymore. That subscription is now available through Substack. So you can find that Substack subscription. It's in the link in my bio. So, hello from Minnesota and Michigan. The banks, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot happening as we speak. So there is just some breaking news right now that I am waiting to confirm myself with TikTok. But Reuters, which is reputable, and Bloomberg, also reputable, reporting tonight that TikTok will be back in the App Store for Apple at least today. Sometime tonight. Now, I have personally checked the Apple App Store and it's not there yet. That doesn't mean it won't show up, but I am still waiting to confirm that information. I have asked for some clarification from TikTok on that, if that is accurate, but I will just sort of say that maybe just pump the brakes because there has been a lot of misinformation being put out about TikTok recently on very reputable websites. So we are going to, I am not reporting it yet. I just want to let you know that I am aware that it is happening and that other outlets are reporting it. I have not seen it yet, but I'm going to just check one more time. Apple App Store. It was not available right before I went on, and it is still not available now. So I'm not sure if that is going to happen or not. So, J-Rock, could I go over the GOP budget proposal? J-Rock, I am so glad that you asked that question. The answer is yes. Right before I came on live here tonight, I posted a very long deep dive video all about that budget proposal. And I know you guys are going to think that that is such a boring, you're going to probably be like, Lisa, that is the most boring topic. Why in the world would you choose to do a video about that today? And here is why. Because this budget proposal, which is called a budget resolution, it's super nerdy and it's super technical. But this mechanism, this budget resolution, is the vehicle that House and Senate Republicans are going to use to push forward and pass President Trump's agenda without any votes from Democrats. Let me say that again, so you absolutely understand what I'm telling you. House Republicans and Senate Republicans are going to use this vehicle called reconciliation to pass Trump's tax cuts, to pass border security, to push immigration, to push Trump's agenda. They are going to use reconciliation through the budget resolution, which is step one of reconciliation, to push Trump's agenda, in theory, with no votes from Democrats. Now, you're probably like, what? How could this be? And the answer is because voters gave Republicans control of the House and the Senate. And because Republicans are in the majority in both the House and the Senate, and because they're using reconciliation as the vehicle, they are able to pass Trump's agenda, what they want to do, with just their majorities. Technically, they don't need any Democratic votes. Now, that's not to say they won't get any. They very well could get some. I don't know yet. We don't know yet because we're not to the voting stage yet. But they could. The other issue here, let's just also be very clear, is the majority in the House for Republicans is so slim that it's going to be very difficult for them to get all of the Republicans, and they'll need every single Republican to vote yes, and that's like herding cats, right? Like that's going to be very difficult to do. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's going to be difficult. So there's some obstacles within the Republican Party itself on how far to go with this Trump agenda. You know, there's some moderates Republicans that are like, I'm not sure about any of this stuff. And then some hardline Republicans are like, go farther. So there's a little bit of that's going to be happening. But yeah, this is how they're going to do it. And I did a whole deep dive video. I'm going to be posting it here to YouTube shortly after we're done here tonight. But it's up on my TikTok already. But the global picture of what it is. The House Republicans are proposing about $2 trillion in spending cuts over the next 10 years to lots of government programs, lots of agencies, lots of departments. They are proposing $4.5 trillion in additional spending to cover Trump's tax cuts that he wants to enact. That includes the things he was trying to talk about on the campaign trail, the no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security, the lowering the corporate tax rate, and then the extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts that are going to expire this year. That costs money. It's not all fun and games. Like let's just cut taxes. No, that costs money to cut taxes. And Republicans think it's going to cost about $4.5 trillion over the next 10 years. And then also included in this Republican budget resolution is $4 trillion in increase to the debt ceiling. Now, I didn't really go into the debt ceiling in the actual video because I've done multiple videos about debt ceiling, but the reality is the debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling does not authorize any new spending. Raising the debt ceiling just allows the Treasury Department to borrow enough money, what it needs to continue to borrow, so it can pay the bills that Congress already racked up. So that's what the debt ceiling is. And right now I've done a video about it. We're up against the debt ceiling right now. We've hit it. We're almost hitting it. And so something has to happen with the debt ceiling. So the Republicans are proposing increasing it by $4 trillion. Listen, this is the proposal. This is what's out there. This doesn't mean this is what it's going to look like in the end. It could be very different in the end. But this is how it starts with this budget budget proposal. Okay. Okay. So there's that going on. Will it be on Substack, Bill? Yes, everything I do is on Substack. Everything I do gets emailed you directly to your inbox. All my videos, all the news I cover, it all gets directly emailed to you through my Substack. So I hope you are signed up for my Substack, which is linked in my bio. Is it possible the Democrats can take back the House before this all happens? Absolutely not. No. No, that is not possible. Is it possible that not all Republicans will be on board? Yes, that is possible. That's why I'm saying that they are going to need all Republicans to fall in line, because they're not going to get any Democrat support for this, because they haven't even consulted Democrats on this at all. This is a purely Republican bill. And here's the other thing, and I said this in the video that I posted, it's not uncommon. Like, the Democrats, when they had the House and the Senate and the White House, they did this. And Republicans did this during Trump's first term. Like, Congresses have used this reconciliation process to pass controversial things right along party lines. They've done this multiple times. This is not new. But as I said in the video, that doesn't mean it's not controversial. And yes, it's absolutely possible that some Republicans aren't on board with this, but that's part of the negotiating process. And in the end, the reality is going to be, you know, the Republican leadership is going to say to the Republicans, either you're on board with Trump's plan or you're not, and you pick. And then the Republican lawmakers are going to have to decide if they want to have the wrath of Donald Trump for not supporting his legislative agenda. That's how this is going to shake out. Is there anything about affordable housing? There is not. So this is just the resolution, the budget resolution. This doesn't give, so as I explained in the video, so the resolution is basically the big ideas. This is the big numbers. Like, this is where they put in, this is how much we're going to spend on this. This is how much we're going to spend on that, you know, and it's not like, so the budget resolution says the Commerce and Energy Department has to cut $880 billion over the next 10 years from the budget. But it doesn't say what they need to cut. What happens is once they agree on all the numbers, then they go through the spending bill process, and then they reconcile the budget resolution to the spending bills to make sure they line up. And in the spending bills, that's when you learn what is actually going to be cut, what is going to go, what is going to stay. But this is basically the big policy ideas. So the big policy ideas, let's not be confused. The big policy ideas are to cut spending by up to $2 trillion, maybe more over the next 10 years, to add $4.5 trillion of tax cuts, and to increase the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. Those are the big ticket items. In those spending cuts are things like perhaps Medicaid will get drastically cut. Agriculture, $230 billion in agricultural, from the Agriculture Department is going to have to be cut. So there's a lot of that in there, but we don't know specifically what programs, we don't know what is being cut. But to your question about affordable housing, no, there was nothing about affordable. No, that's not what this budget resolution does. It doesn't lay that stuff out. That all comes in the spending bills. Are there any cuts to Social Security and Medicare? Again, there is $880 billion that needs to be cut from the Energy and Commerce Committee. So the Energy and Commerce Committee oversees programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. So we don't, and all the budget resolution says is $880 billion needs to be cut out of all the government agencies that the House Energy and Commerce Committee oversees. $880 billion needs to be cut over the next 10 years. That's what it says. We don't know if that will include Social Security and Medicare. It very likely will include Medicaid. The only reason why I'm saying it may not include Social Security and Medicare is because President Trump has been adamant that Social Security and Medicare is not going to get touched, though he did sort of backtrack on that with Elon Musk in the White House the other day, saying we need to look at the programs. So who knows is the answer to your question. Lance, what is your thoughts on Doge? Is it really working to save us money? So I don't share opinions, Lance, but what I can tell you about Doge is the fact that Doge has not saved the United States $1. And here's why I say that. Not because they're not cutting things, they very well could be cutting things. And we know through the lawsuits that are being filed against Doge that they are cutting things. But the fact is, there is not one government document, there is not one report that shows $1 has been saved or cut by Doge. If you actually look at what the White House is talking about, they are referring to articles from places like the Daily Mail. When I saw that, I thought to myself, the Daily Mail, why is the White House directing journalists to the Daily Mail? The Daily Mail, in case you're unclear, is a tabloid. So I would imagine, and my history of covering the White House tells me that usually the White House directs journalists to actual government documents and actual government resources. So with Doge, at least for right now, none of that is happening. So I can't tell you a fact about what Doge has cut. And everything you're seeing about what Doge has cut is speculation or just something that Elon Musk has said or something he has posted to his Doge Twitter account. That's the reality. I will not be taking any comments on that. That's the fact. You can choose to believe Elon Musk if you want. I don't believe anybody until I see a piece of paper that shows me what is happening and what is coming and going, then I don't report on it. I don't report speculation, so that's not what I do here. Was there a promise of dollar amount saved in a certain time frame, or was it just we are doing it? Yeah, I heard TikTok is back in the Apple Store now. I see it. I just got a text. So yeah, it's back, guys. Was there a promise of a dollar amount saved in a certain time frame? It's a great question. So no, there was no dollar amount saved or promised in a certain time frame. No. And in fact, I just did a video about it a couple of days ago and shared the sound from President Trump. And in one sentence, he says $1 billion. In the next sentence, he says 500 million. In the next sentence, he says $1 trillion. And then in the next sentence, he says 100 billion. So I think everybody's a little fuzzy on the math right now. And I think that goes back to my original point, which is there is no report yet. There is no document that shows what these people are doing. I mean, we know what they're doing because of the lawsuits that are being filed and because, people are being fired or laid off or government agencies are shutting down. We know that, and we know that as well through the courts, but there is no and I'm harping on these government documents for a reason, because anytime there is a committee it's not normally when something like this happens, some kind of auditing process happens. Normally, the audit happens of a government agency or a department. They're pretty quiet about it. Sometimes we know it's happening, but we're not getting this day-to-day trickle down of information. And then 6 months down the road, we get a report of what is happening. So what they're trying to do with Doge right now is sort of squeak out little bits of information every day based on what they're seeing. And I get that they're probably doing that to be sort of transparent, to appear transparent. But what is happening is that's causing more questions, because people are like, what are you talking about? What is all this stuff? So usually this process plays out a lot differently. And I think that's what's being very confusing to people. I saw the recipients today from the press secretary. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You saw a handful, and it was yesterday, by the way. You saw a handful of government contracts that she said were, in the eyes of the White House, fraudulent or wasteful. But here's the thing. Those are a handful of contracts, certainly not billions of dollars in contracts. Second, Congress approved those contracts. Now, the White House could disagree with the policy. That's fine, but it's not fraud or abuse. It's just a policy problem, right? It's not fraud or abuse. Fraud and abuse means that somebody's doing something that's illegal. Now, I'm not saying that's not happening. It might be. Who knows? But what the press secretary is showing you are government contracts that were approved by Congress. And the Trump administration just has a policy problem. They have a policy difference. They don't let, because those contracts were for DEI type programs, which obviously we know this White House does not approve of. So it was a policy issue. So I hope that's clear for you, Mr. Danger. Miguel, yes, that U.S. attorney story, I am writing all about that story in my Substack email tonight. So make sure you get that. Putin talked to Trump. Do we anticipate a three-way peace talk? That's a great question. So in the White House today, President Trump was talking about how he wants to have some kind of, he was fuzzy on whether it's going to be like Putin, Trump, and Zelensky in a room, or if it was going to be like Trump and Putin talk, and then Trump and Zelensky talk, and then they find a resolution to the Ukraine issue. It's unclear what it's going to look like, but the president said again today that he said that Putin, according to the president, Putin wants peace, and we of course know that the Ukrainians want peace. At the same time, the Ukrainians have said that, they're not going to participate in any peace process if they're not part of the negotiation. So we will have to wait and see. Audit happens and results get ignored. Maybe by you, NPC, but they don't get ignored by me. I mean, I do video reports on audits all the time. So here's the thing, and I keep seeing this a lot. People are like, oh, they're uncovering all this stuff. You can only uncover something if it was hidden. None of that shit they're talking about was hidden. If you just took the time to look, you would have seen all of that stuff. It's just that nobody cared to look. Nobody cared to look. It's all been out there. It's not hidden. So just because you're paying attention to it now doesn't mean it was hidden. Does that make sense? What happens if Mexico and Canada start trading with the United States? I don't think Mexico and Canada are going to stop trading with the United States. I don't think they're going to stop. Are they going to maybe cut back or find other trading partners? Probably. What is that going to mean to the U.S. economy? We're going to have to wait and see. So today, President Trump also signed an executive order to start looking at what are called reciprocal tariffs. So his plan, he's all about tariffs, right? So his plan now is to have every government agency sort of investigate what U.S. products are being tariffed in other countries. So for example, I'm going to just make it up. If I'm going to just make something up. So if steel, that's a bad example. If remote controls are tariffed in, say, India is say U.S. is manufacturing these remote controls and they are exporting them to, let's say, India. And India, that's not, it probably would be the other way around, neither here nor there. This is just a hypothetical. So remote controls made in the United States and are being exported to India. And India says, well, we make our own remote controls, so we're going to tariff American imports on remote controls by 30%. So what the president said today was, well, if India is tariffing American remote controls by 30%, then Indian remote controls coming into the United States, we're going to tariff by 30%. Does that mean that's a reciprocal tariff? So it would be equal to. That's what President Trump is talking about in his executive order today, and he's talking about having every government agency sort of investigate what all these tariffs are for what, and then to come back to him with a list of all these potential reciprocal tariffs that we can impose on people. Look, every economist will tell you that tariffs raise prices for American consumers. President Trump seems to think it is a bargaining tool and it is a way to generate revenue. I've done multiple stories on this. The fact is, we have never had more than 2% of our federal revenue come from tariffs in the history of tariffs. So, I mean, maybe Trump will be the first one to get more than 2% revenue because of the tariffs, but I'm not sure how, because all of our goods are going to get tariffed on the other side. So. Hi, Austin. Thank you. Do I need to worry about anything student loan related? Oof. It's a great question. Look, I am not, Austin, a alarmist, right? Like, I am the kind of person who believes in sharing the facts, so then you can take those facts as they stand today and make the best decision for yourself. The facts are this. The Trump administration wants to eliminate the Department of Education. The Department of Education facilitates your student loans, probably. I mean, I don't know exactly what student loan you have, but I am sure that at some point the Department of Education is involved in that loan in some way. I don't know what it's going to mean for you. Nobody knows what it's going to mean. And nobody knows really how long any kind of quote unquote dismantling of the Department of Education is going to take. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. But there may be some disruption to your student loan. There may be some disruptions coming. Now, the nominee, the Trump nominee to be the education secretary, Linda McMahon, was testifying today, and she laid out a plan on, not a plan, but she talked about how her job is to basically dismantle the Department of Education. So I'm going to follow it. And as soon as, because I know student loans are really important to a lot of you guys. And so I am going to follow it. And as soon as I know more about that, I will absolutely do a video on it. They are freezing funds. They froze projects for water in my town. Yeah, so that is because of the executive order that Trump signed on day one that said all federal loans and grants program needs to be paused. Now that program for your water in your town, J-Rock, should be back open because a federal judge told Trump he cannot pause those funds. So it's possible those funds could start flowing again soon. Because of the judge's order. But they shouldn't be stopped for very long. I know the Trump administration is appealing that ruling, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't stop for very long. How often do I go live? Not very often. Not very often. I mean, I go live for my subscribers over on Substack a couple of times a month. But this is actually the second time I've gone live here on YouTube. Is my newsletter free? It is, Lance. My Facts HQ newsletter, I send it every night. That is free through my Substack. I highly suggest that you sign up for that. Yes, I saw TikTok now in the App Store. I know. Was there really 40 million in new government contracts for Tesla? Actually, Steve, well, I have not checked government contracts today. I saw that reporting as well. I have not looked into it today because I was focused on the budget resolution video. But the fact is, Tesla and SpaceX, since Elon Musk became the founder of both, has received 20.2 billion with a B dollars in federal contracts. So those are the facts. And it does appear that Tesla and SpaceX are still openly competing in the bidding process for new government contracts. Whether he did get awarded one or not, I'm not sure because I haven't checked today. But they are not stopping from the government. And also, just in case there was any question, Elon Musk also met with the leader of India, who was actually at the White House to speak with President Trump about government issues. And Elon Musk then also met with the with the leader of India. I mean, just for the record, he's been trying to build a battery factory for Teslas there, and he's been trying to get Teslas to be able to be sold in India, and he wants a SpaceX contract for his SpaceX company with India. So I guess, you know, being the leader of DOGE and giving $200 million to a political campaign gets you access, I guess. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, I'm just pointing out a fact. I'm not trying to be, you know, rude, but it's a fact. He did meet with the prime minister or with the leader of India today. And it also is a fact that he's currently acting as a special government employee for the federal government of the United States to cut departments that people rely on, agencies that people rely on, all while also getting billions with a B in government contracts. I mean, President Trump says there's no conflict of interest there. A lot of other people disagree with that, but President Trump is pretty adamant that there is no conflict of interest. Danny, this is a great question. Any updates on if the administration is following the federal judge's order about sending out funds and not freezing them? So here's the thing, which is I find very interesting. President Trump yesterday categorically said that he absolutely follows the judge's order, all the judge's orders. He said, I always follow the judge's orders. That's what he said. Yet, reportedly, people involved in the organizations where funding is frozen or people have been laid off, and they're not supposed to be because of judge's orders, they're saying the federal government is not, the Trump administration is not following these orders. So it's like, who are you believing? Do you believe the president who says, I always follow the judge's order? Or are you believing the people involved in these agencies and organizations who are saying, they haven't turned the funding back on, or they're continuing to fire people, they're continuing to shut down organizations? It's up to you to decide who you want to believe on that one. Deborah, Congress approves Monday. How is DOGE being funded? So that's a good question too. This whole DOGE thing is very fuzzy. DOGE was created through an executive order. The president very cleverly, instead of creating a new agency for DOGE, basically wrapped DOGE into an existing agency within the executive branch. And that agency was like an IT department, basically, that already had funding for, working on IT issues and helping the, create websites for the government, stuff like that. And so now DOGE was rolled up into that existing agency. I mean, whether they're using that agency funding, I'm not sure. I don't know is the answer. Nobody really knows where any of the funding is coming from for this whole thing. Like, who is paying these young people that are working with Elon Musk at DOGE? What are their salaries? Or is Elon Musk paying them directly himself? I'm not sure. It's a great question. Patricio, do you know why the federal judge said the employees had no standing, or why the federal judge didn't have jurisdiction? I don't know why the judge, that's just what the judge ruled on that federal worker free buyout. That's what the president calls it, a buyout. That's just what he ruled. Judges often rule on standing. It's very difficult, just generally, you should know this, because I hear people all the time, they're like, I'm gonna sue the federal government. And I'm like, good luck with that. That's why very few lawsuits actually make it. I mean, we hear about people suing the federal government, but for every one person that's successful in it, there's thousands that are not successful, and it's usually because of the standing issue. It's very difficult to establish standing. There's a whole legal test that you have to prove to qualify for standing. And for some reason, this federal judge did not believe that the unions had standing. Now, whether actual individual federal workers had standing, I mean, you would think so, but the unions, the judge said, did not. What about the tax cuts to Medicaid? Kyle, we don't know yet. Well, it wouldn't be tax cuts to Medicaid. It would be cuts to spending on Medicaid if it were to happen. And we don't know the answer to that yet, because we don't know how much, whether it's even going to happen. All we know is that the Republicans in the House are trying to cut $2 trillion in spending, and Medicaid is definitely up for discussion. Parts of it. I mean, I don't think they would just, cut Medicaid altogether and doesn't exist, but they may cut down on it for sure. But we just don't know what it looks like yet. Heidi, this is a great question. What do you think about the AP News not being allowed at the White House press conference? Is reporting from the White House actually a privilege and not protected right under the First Amendment, Heidi? Okay, so there's a couple of things there. So the answer is yes, it is a privilege to be at the White House covering the White House. I'm a journalist. I'm an accredited journalist. I'm a professional journalist, but I do not have the right to walk onto the White House grounds and demand to sit in the press briefing room. That's not how it works. There are protocols and rules, and there are people that sort of police who gets to be in that room. And then, so there's that. So the AP, just for the record, the AP Associated Press is allowed to be in the press briefing room. And the press briefing, and that's because the White House Correspondents is an organization. So there's a kind of a governing body of Washington D.C. type journalists, and that body is in charge of deciding who gets to really sit in the White House briefing room. So the AP obviously is part of that, and probably not going to be, I mean, never say never, but they're not going to be removed from the briefing room. Where the AP got removed was from the Oval Office press event. And the White House asserts that that is a privilege that the White House gets to determine who goes in there. And the White House said that the AP could not go into the Oval Office and has been banned from there, at least for now, because the AP is not calling it the Gulf of America. And the reason why the AP is not calling it the Gulf of America, according to the AP, is because for 400 years, we have been calling it the Gulf of Mexico. And because the AP is an international organization, it is not just a US organization, they are international. And they have to sort of, not just abide by what the United States does. They have to also make it relevant to their audience around the world. And so that's why they said that. So now there's, of course, Heidi, to your question, there's a big First Amendment question there, right? So President Trump on day one signed an executive order saying that he was going to take the shackles off and First Amendment for everybody. And then one of the first things he does within his first month in office is bar the AP, a journalist organization, from being in the White House because of a First Amendment issue, because they chose not to call it the Gulf of America. I mean, you get to decide what you think of. Those are the facts. That's how it lays out. Whether you think that's a violation of the First Amendment or the president has every right to do that, that's for you to decide. What is the reasoning behind dismantling the Department of Education? So, the Trump administration, so President Trump on the campaign trail sort of campaigned, and he's been on this train for a while, this whole school choice train, which is instead of sort of the US government putting money into public schools, the president believes it would be a better, more efficient use of money to just give parents sort of vouchers to pay for school and let the parents choose what school their kids go to, whether that's a private school or a parochial school or a charter school or whatever. And so by doing that, then you would eliminate the Department of Department of Education does so many things, but that's one of the reasons why he thinks getting rid of the Department of Education is a good idea, because he believes in the school choice of it all, which would then sort of diminish the role of the Department of Education. Now, the fact is the Department of Education does a lot of things. Higher education, there's the student loan part of all of it, not to mention, administering the, free and reduced school lunch program for needy kids and sort of establishing standards for tests and so forth in this country. So we don't know how it's going to actually shake out. First of all, we don't even have a cabinet secretary yet for the Department of Education. So once that happens, then we might get a better idea of what he wants to do. But we also know that the DOGE Elon Musk team is going into the Department of Education now to start cutting. And I don't know what that's going to look like either. Amir, if I was the AP, I would sue. They have every legal right to be in the press room. So yes, so Amir, they are in the press room. Let's be very clear. The AP was in the press room. They were in the White House briefing room. That's not where they were banned from. They were banned from being in the Oval Office. It's a significant difference. I mean, it's still, the thought and the idea is still the same. It is still, whether it's a First Amendment issue or not, that's for you to decide. But they were allowed in the press briefing room. They were there. They were not allowed into the White House. But only a small group of journalists were allowed in the White House, in the Oval Office. Has Trump frozen government hiring? I don't know if it's that, but he definitely signed an executive order yesterday saying that any new hires, if you want to hire somebody new in the federal government, you have to consult with the DOGE team within your department. And any new hire has to have 4 firings that go with it. So if you hire one new person, you have to fire 4 other people. That's what the executive order says. Chris Salyasify. I find it nice to see you. What happens if he disobeys the judge? That would be a constitutional crisis. Plain and simple. Oh, Rachel, I'm so glad you like the newsletter. Thank you. Student loans are dependent on your individual school. Not necessarily, Emily. Pell Grants are grants that come through the Department of Education. Other federal student loans are run through the department, like paying your federal student loans. Of course, your FAFSA runs through the Department of Education as well, and then the award grant would go through your individual school, but not necessarily. Will all probationary employees let go? I don't know. I don't speak in absolutes, but I know that they are talking about those that were probationary being let go. But I've not seen it widespread yet. I think that it's happening in certain departments in certain areas. But like blanket, I have not seen that yet. What's going on with banks? So that's a really interesting question. I was just having this conversation with my mom earlier today. So banks are regulated by two different organizations. Banks, according to the law, by the way, it's not just it's not like they just decided who was gonna, like, willy-nilly. There's a law that says banks with assets of more than $10 billion, so that's your JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, B of A, all of those are the big banks, right? Those banks are regulated and overseen by what's called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And then all the other banks that are below that $10 billion asset threshold are regulated by the Federal Reserve. Well, as you may or may not know, I did a video last week. The DOGE team has basically eliminated the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So what is happening with banks? According to the Federal Reserve chairman who testified in front of the Senate committee earlier this week, Senate Banking Committee, he said basically there's no one at the wheel regulating the big banks right now. It is what it is. Smaller banks, your community banks, your credit unions, people like that, those are all being regulated through the Federal Reserve. But the big banks, the ones that actually cause the problems usually, no one's at the wheel. Steve, the Webster Dictionary defines conflict of interest. Actually, there's a legal definition of conflict of interest, and I did a whole video about Elon Musk and his potential conflicts of interest and how it lines up with the law. Go check that video out. Curtis, I'm so glad you like the newsletter. Yeah, I know. I saw TikTok back up in the App Store. That's great news. I need to update my app. I've been waiting to update my phone because of the whole thing. So I'm glad it's back up and running. Does Congress have to approve the dismantling of the Department of Education? Look, does Congress have to approve the dismantling of USAID? Does Congress need to approve the dismantling of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? Does Congress need to approve the dismantling of the Department of Education? All three of those departments were created from a law, and now they're either gone or in jeopardy. Technically, the answer is yes. Congress does need to approve any elimination of a department or agency that's been created by Congress through a law. But so far, the Trump administration disagrees with that, and they're doing what they want to do, and they're going to keep doing that until somebody stops them. And whether they comply, and the only people, by the way, that could stop them are Congress. Congress is not going to stop them. I just want to be very clear because, again, Republicans control both the House and the Senate, and they have shown repeatedly they are not willing to go up against Donald Trump. So it's not going to be Congress that stops them. The only one that could stop them are the courts. Now, will the Trump administration comply with the courts? Trump says yes, but people who are on the receiving end of all these cuts are saying they're not complying. So, Chris, the answer to your question is legally, technically, yes, Congress does have to approve the dismantling of an agency or a department that was created by a law, which the Department of Education was. So was the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So was USAID. But they're either gone or on the chopping block now. Yeah, I know. I saw TikTok back in the App Store. I know. It's great. It's great news. Danielle, thank you. Do we know what will happen to public schools? We don't know anything. We won't know anything until we see the plan for the Department of Education. Amir, if the president can disregard the courts and laws passed by Congress, why have a constitution? I mean, listen, you ask great questions, and we've not really seen this before. And so, well, listen, it's too early, Amir, it's too early to like freak out about it. Does that make sense? It's certainly something to be paying attention to, and it's certainly something that you need to keep your eyes on. But so far, we haven't seen any like blatant disregard for the courts. Now, if the Supreme Court came down and said to Trump, you cannot dismantle Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that is a law. The only way you can get rid of it is by Congress passing a law to get rid of it. And then he says, go pound sand at the Supreme Court. Now, Amir, we can freak out. But we haven't seen that yet. We haven't gotten to that place yet. So listen, I feel like there's a lot of things in life to be worried about generally. So I don't want to add hypothetical things to worry about to my life. If I believe that giving you guys all the facts and then letting you decide what to do with those facts, that is the best thing I can do for you. So those are the facts. The facts are we're not there yet. And it is not something I'm keeping an eye on it. Don't be confused. I'm watching it, but I'm not at the point yet where I am personally panicking and saying, oh my God, we're in a constitutional crisis. Now, if we get to that point, I will absolutely report on it, and I will absolutely let you know that's where we're at, but we're not there yet. I hope that helps, Amir. USA Power 01, thank you. You're welcome. Oh, Tyler, thanks for subscribing to the Substack. Yes, definitely, guys, make sure that if you aren't already signed up for my Substack email, I send that out every night, the Facts HQ Substack email. Make sure you're signed up for it. It's a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information and resources every single day, plus my videos. It's very, very helpful. What are Republican Congress members afraid of? So, listen, I mean, there's no other way to say it. President Trump is very powerful. He's very powerful. He, especially in the Republican Party, especially among the Republican base. And what's most important for you to understand about the Republican base is the Republican base are the people who show up at primary election time. So they're not of course they show up in November, but they also show up in a primary election in an off year to vote for a random House seat. Do you know what I'm saying? And he's very popular among that very conservative Republican base. And so, and the reality is, if you cannot get through a primary election, you can't get to a general election, so you're not going to be able to hold your seat. And so what are they afraid of? They're afraid that he's going to primary them. To be fair, he and Elon Musk have absolutely said that any Republican who defies them, they will be primaried. So Sean, that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid they're going to get primaried and lose their seat. I mean, it's as simple as that. There's no, like, that's not controversial. I'm not saying anything that's not common knowledge. Oh, Adam, thank you. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. Keyword yet. Austin, you're right. That's yet. That, like, yet is one of my favorite words. Just because it isn't happening today doesn't mean it won't happen. It might not happen, but it very well could. That's why it's important to follow me. That's why it's important to be part of this Newsgirl community. It's important to join me here live. It's important to be on my Substack. Pay attention so you keep up on what's happening, because things are moving so fast. Oh, Vicky, that's very nice. Tell your dad I said thank you. I appreciate that. All right, guys. I can't believe it's been an hour already. Holy smokes. This has been fun. Make sure you are signed up for my Facts HQ newsletter. That is going to go out probably in the next hour or so. That is linked in my bio. If you can, consider becoming a paid subscriber. There's a bunch of perks for people who are paid subscribers of mine over on Substack. I do private lives, like just for paid subscribers. I do a vote, like you guys, my paid subscribers get to vote every single week on a bonus story that I cover. There's all like chat threads, all kinds of stuff. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber. That is how I'm able to continue to do this work. So without my paid subscribers, I would not be able to do this. So if you can, consider becoming a paid subscriber. If you cannot be a paid subscriber, just definitely sign up for the free newsletter. That is something you should be on the list for, just in case, you know, you don't see my videos on any given day. At least you know you will get an email every night from me with all the news of the day. All right. Nice to see you guys all tonight. Thank you for being here. Good night.